In terms of sneak peeks for gameplay, the best I don't know, way to get that is just kind of go through the UI snippets and past updates and then announcements. Oh, Phelan dissertation coming up. Your
All
favorite.
right.
But yeah, in terms of gameplay snippets, I would just go through like the announcements. We posted like UI snippets. You could see like ship models with animations on there, which is how they'll look like on map when they're moving around, things like that. Actual like video gameplay, I don't know, sometime soon. Still getting like all that stuff together. An on-chain game development process is very different from normal game development process where like normal game development, you probably have a demo and like a video relatively soon. But with on on-chain games, you have a couple hundred smart contracts to put together, everything. The game is really kind of like not necessarily the last part that comes together, but like in terms of like a cohesive test, you're that's something that kind of comes last. I mean, obviously you could build out a demo earlier, and I would have assumed from a lot of projects that makes sense. But considering Citadel is like a lot of math, like our gameplay tests are the equivalent of just like math tests and computation and things like that to make sure it's all running right.
Hmm.
We know the math adds up, so now when we build the UI around it, it'll be a game.
Beautiful.
Can you tell us about any networking you've done with the Polygon people? Are there going to be any partnerships with QuickSwap to yield farm or LPs? I don't know what QuickSwap is. Maybe Heimdall does, but we haven't done any real directly. We've been in contact through a few friends. Been a while since we followed up with them. I know they're like aware of the game and they're gonna like tweet out and support it upon launch when we tell them that it's good to do so. There's probably room for a greater degree of collaboration. But at the moment, there's like nothing too extreme. We're in contact. We have group chats together. We've talked with their BD team. So I think when the time comes and something that's like what probably a little bit more focused on, or maybe the DAO is focused on, then that's probably like something that we could chase after then.
Question from Maxi. Will there be early beta play for people anytime soon, maybe?
Uh, Obviously, I mean, we're working to get a beta as soon as possible. We're not rushing it, you know. But yeah, when there is a beta, we are going to let as many people as reasonably possible that allows us to collect good and cohesive, concise feedback, uh, test it out and play it. So that'll be a mix of yellow people, green people, orange. We'll just do a little big, big handful, maybe like 200, 300 people. We'll see. But yeah, when there is a beta, it's coming up. It's kind of what we're building towards, putting all the pieces together recently. Yeah, there'll be videos, people streaming in chat, and people getting to test it.
Yep.
How soon? I don't know. Soon ish. Quotations, asterisks.
Uh, we love that. We love the soon response. When? Soon, soon, soon. Sounds
As
good.
far as a quick swap goes, I never really looked into them. Because I didn't know that they were number one on Polygon, but I appreciate you informing us. As far as all the LP ideas we've been developing, they're pretty much designed to work on any decks. But I mean, we're open to any ideas that you have, and if you want to send any information about QuickSwap, feel free to send it over to me.
Yeah. Question from Mix. How do you plan to market the project once you get back to release schedule program, and how would you see yourself in the current NFT meta?
Architect, answer the marketing question. I know that's your field. Also, the how do you see the project in the current FT meta? I'm curious.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I can try. Our plan for marketing has always been keep quiet, try to, keep the amount of stuff that we're releasing low, but the quality of it high. And kind of ramp up as we have more to show and as we get closer to launch. So like internally, we've been preparing several documents and some other content that we're planning on releasing basically all at once as we get closer to launch to kind of build up hype. But that's not something that we want right now. The current NFT meta and where we fit into that, I don't know. I've been kind of trying to withdraw from the current NFT meta. I mean, obviously, we're keeping track of other on-chain gaming projects and what they're doing and the innovations that they're making, but the NFT meta in general, I'm not really sure.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
Flynn, maybe you have some stuff to add on the current NFT meta and how you see the project fitting in. I'm curious.
I mean, if you really want my opinion, I don't really think we fit into the current NFT meta. I think that's not something we really care all that much about trying to fit into. We're trying to make something I think that's broader than an NFT project, as like an actual persistent world kind of project. We're not really looking at, you know, how we can position our collection of Genesis ships or anything. We're looking at how can we launch a like long-term game project. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I mean, we're certainly involved in the NFT scene and we're certainly adjacent to it. It's a subset of what's going on, but I think we're trying to eventually sort of expand quite a bit beyond just being an NFT collection. So it's not something I think we give too much thought to.
I'll also add that a lot of the most successful projects weren't in the current meta when they launched. Like, I mean, you can even just point to like Wolf Game. I mean, it wasn't like on-chain game meta at that point, but then they became super successful. So
Yeah, I mean, the current meta sucks. NFTs are really bad. Most projects are terrible. Super blunt, but I mean, just like normal startups and normal businesses, like, 99% of them fail terribly. For businesses and startups, that's probably like more like 70 to 80%. I think for NFT projects and that area of things, probably like 99%. But yeah, I mean, we're not a fan of the meta. We have no interest. We think it's super toxic. It's not really anything that we are interested in. We keep track of it. It's fun to watch how much it changes, considering we've gone through a couple bulls, a couple bears, a few black swans by now. Geez, a lot has happened. Anyways,
Question
Jimmy,
from...
go for it. Yeah.
You still going? I'm sorry. Question from Lost. With these session keys, will the transactions on-chain be charged in ETH or OR? And will it just save all transactions until you are done? Or will you have to preload that temporary wallet with the necessary funds?
Okay, so there are a few things here. Transactions, the gas fees for those will be paid in whatever the native token for the network is. So for game transactions, that means Matic. In terms of when the transactions are submitted, that happens as soon as, you perform an in-game action. It's not saved. And the funding works in kind of an interesting way that we thought was a little bit clever, where when you start the session, that contract call is payable. So you send it whatever your session funding is going to be. And it takes care of wrapping that and coordinating how the burner wallet's going to unwrap that for gas fees. And then at the end of the session, or whenever you want after the session ends, you can claim back all the unspent session funding.
All right. Apel had a question. Perhaps that was kind of cleared up in that. Just to be clear, the session key is a burner wallet that is created and used for the transactions made per session. And then after the session, what happens? And it will be the same burner wallet session key each time we log in.
Okay, so yes, the burner wallet is a key that's created per session. Theoretically, if you wanted to, you could use the same burner wallet for all your sessions. That's kind of an implementation detail. We would recommend against that though, just because
There's no reason.
yeah, there's no reason to do it, and it puts more value in that private key.
I'm not sure if Razzle's question was answered. Have you ever considered moving away from Polygon to Arbitrum, for example, considering the recent congestion issues?
Yeah, we've considered several other L2 solutions and I mean scaling solutions in general. The problem that we have with basically everything but Polygon right now is that uh, they don't seem to be paying any attention to transaction sequencing and transaction censorship. Most of these L2s right now that are EVM compatible have a single validator, which I believe is one of the reasons why they're so fast right now. But the problem with that is that single validator is able to decide which transactions get included and in which order, which we find kind of problematic.
Not to mention, Polygon is mature, improves, and most of the congestion issues are related to, poor RPC choices, bad contracts, and inefficient, gas optimization. And it's not much of an issue as a lot of the LARPing people like to make tweet threads out of and talk about. It has its spikes, but it's a lot.
It's a stable network. Polygon gets a lot of flack where it's not really deserved from people who have made choices, well, less than ideal choices about how they interface with Polygon.
Yeah. Ultimately, we've always been very aware of the potential of a better L2 or scaling solution to come along since the very beginning when we started working on the project, even when we did choose Polygon. So we built everything to keep that in mind with the purpose of keeping the availability and option and relative ease to transitioning to a new L2 just an option for when and if the team or the DAO ever decided that there's something better out there. That was definitively a good decision. Beyond that, I mean, I think like in terms of scaling, like what we're most excited about and looking forward to is like rather than L2s like Arbitrum or whatever, like the real, creme here is ZK, and a ZK like EVM that's decentralized. And I think that's on the horizon. It's probably not going to come as soon as everyone thinks it is, but it might be coming a lot sooner than people expected in the past. And that will be very exciting. And at that point, it's probably going to be the difference between like ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4, where there's no argument.
Question from Maxi. Any idea of mint price?
At this moment, I mean, we have internal discussions, thoughts, and ideas, but as we've kind of talked about before, considering the amount of work that's gone into the project, we think sharing those details deserves like its own full announcement and breakdown. We have a lot of interesting ways we're going about things when it comes to launch and mint price and the overall structure. So sharing anything this early would probably do it at a disservice because you're not getting the full picture. It will be a paid mint. It won't be 0.1 or 0.2. It's not going to be ridiculous. And I mean, I can tell you like our goals is to be as fair. Yeah, I mean, just we're going to operate and strive to be as far north of fair as humanly possible. And I think when it comes time to showcase what that is and how we're going about it, the community will agree and be very happy. but right now it's too early to share those details. But it won't be free, and it will be paid.
Question from Hofflake. You will be releasing regardless of meta, right?
Yes, we have never once cared about the meta, the state of the market. We have never once delayed because of meta, the state of the market, and we've never made any changes, decisions, or gone a different course because of any current meta or state of the market. We have continued on our vision, what we thought was best in our interests, since day zero, all the way up until I don't know, day 428 or something like that, whatever it is right now. We do not care, and that shit does not concern us. We are very confident in the project, but that isn't to say that we are full of ourselves and it's like, oh, it won't matter. We just heavily believe in the way we're going to do things. Makes the state of the market not really a concern for both the project and ourselves.
Question from Flopnox. Will the mint be after the MetaMask and OS airdrop?
I have no idea when those are going to happen. If it happens before launch, that's cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're all praying for the MetaMask and an OpenSea airdrop. You know, can't complain about stimmies, free stimmies.
Question from Razzle. Does single validator mean a centralized validator?
So in the case of rollups, it means that there's only one party who's allowed to post the data back to the original chain. So for ZK rollups, that means the person posting the data in the proof, and for optimistic rollups, that means the person posting the data. And it may sound like that doesn't mean much, but the problem is the person posting the data gets to control what goes into the data. So they may submit, a record of transactions that's completely valid, but still excludes the transactions that they didn't like that got submitted to them.
Question from Maxi. Touching on more marketing, will there be outreach to other gaming NFT communities or to gaming NFT YouTubers to help raise profile?
Yeah. I know we've connected with a good few figures, people in the space that are respected and not pieces of shit. There's probably still a few, maybe not the best people floating around the server that have roles that are going to get pruned because, we love pruning. Pruning is a good thing, not pruning it in a malicious way. But yeah, I mean, I think we have made some good relationships and people are very excited who dabble in those areas. I think once it comes time for a larger focus on that, we'll probably be getting hit up a ton by people in general who are interested in like trying to do something like that. And at that point, we can probably double down further if it seems like a good idea.
Question from Lost. With this new freedom travel, you can now travel anywhere, but can you stop mid-travel and change to a new destination?
Yeah, of course. And we're excited to see what strategies come out of that.
Siggy. So less than 1 ETH and more than 0.02?
It's going to be 1,337 ETH, actually.
You heard it there. I mean, that guy controls the contracts. I can't really say no to that.
Question from Sun. Will there be a prize for the first person to get their ship burned in the abyss?
Not necessarily a prize, but we do think it'd be cool if they got like a custom like avatar, unlocked on their account and maybe a background to go with it to reflect that. Like that sounds fucking rad, and I hope it's me.
I think that sounds kind of like a prize.
I'll also be framing a picture of their ship and putting it on my wall.
Yeah. I mean, you'll definitely whoever gets their ship burned in the abyss first is definitely going to be kind of like
Yeah, the
a
prize is
memorable
clout.
figure. Yeah, that's some provenance. That's definitely some clout. That dude is a G.
The OG ship burn. Question from Fingers. Will it be possible to be stuck without ore in the middle of space, or will there always be some kind of slow propulsion available?
It is possible to get stuck, and that's part of what makes the travel system interesting. It's never a good idea to travel without thinking about what it costs and what you're going to get out of it.
Question from Lost. Okay, so stopping mid-travel and changing destinations still tells you how much the updated trip will be, though, correct?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Like in terms of ore, yes. Uh, in terms of distance, the distance would be computed from wherever you are in your current travel, not, where you started that travel.
Question from Maxi. Do you think launch would be possible within the next 6 months?
Yes, I'm pretty confident on that. I know our timeline is like our internal timeline is sooner than that. But if it takes 6 more months, it might take 6 more months. But we don't foresee that being the case. I mean, I think we're making really strong progress, and I mean, at some point we just want to play the damn game ourselves. I mean, we do, but we want the full package, the full experience. We're gonna do things right, or it's gonna take the time it takes. But I think with that in mind, it's closer than 6 months. Don't hold me to it though.
Question from Wiseowl. What do you guys think about paid consumables? Add 1 ETH to the DAO and get 1 charge to protect your ship if it were to become destroyed.
I don't know. I know. What are your thoughts on that? I feel like you might have some choice words.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, Jimmy?
I can. What do you guys think about paid consumables? For example, add 1 ETH to the DAO and get 1 charge to protect your ship if it were to become destroyed.
This sounds like the insurance type of idea, and I think we've talked about this before. I think it's probably not the best. It's sort of like a pay to win mechanic, especially because the whole thing is designed around strategy, skill, activity, and then also risk appetite. And if somebody were able to just pay to avoid the risk in the abyss, I mean, it could be plus EV for the DAO, but again, I just think it's not fair to people who don't have the money to do that. And so we don't want to cater to the whales as I feel like most projects try to do. I think in the long run, it makes the ecosystem more equitable and actually, much more, the more equitable an economy is, the more people want to be a part of it. And the more value it accrues in the long term. And so we don't have a short-term focus here. We have a long-term focus. And I think it's a cool idea, but I think it might be just overall just unfair for players of lesser means.
I also like to add on what Hallflake said in chat, where the ship do be the consumable. Like, that's pretty accurate. If you wanted to have that kind of consumable approach, just buy more ships and let them be consumed by the abyss. Seems like the result is the same.
Question from Razzle. Curio just raised 2.9 mil seed round and the Citadel looks much more advanced. Are you also looking for funding?
In the past, we were approached by a lot of VC firms, like early 20, honestly, it's crazy. I get my years mixed up on when saying stuff like this because of how long the project's been going on. In 2021, was it 2021 or
It
20?
would have been early 2022, I think.
22.
Would it? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jeez, that's crazy. Okay. Early 2022, we were approached by a lot of firms back in the frothy bull market asking our interest in funding. And at the time, we said, no, that's not our interest. We're building a very decentralized project. And obviously, I think a lot of people share the same view that VCs can clash with that mentality and that ethos. And so we turned all of them down. Maybe in retrospect would have been something to dive into and consider further, but knowing the VCs who did approach us, I still think it was the right call. In terms of seeking funding later, we obviously were continually kind of hit up here and there about conversations, and it's something that we've like talked about and considered. In terms of what Curio's done, seeing them announce their seed raise was really awesome. We have become kind of good friends with their team, considering that Heimdall and Flam no lifed their game for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 whole days in a row, like the entire days. So I'm very excited that they were able to get funding at that level and find some investors that they felt fit their, I don't know, vision and ethos. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for them. In terms of what Citadel's doing, we have a different approach. This kind of relates to what I talked about earlier when it comes to mint price, and details like this would be kind of like, I don't know, a little too premature to share. But that's like an outlook on our view and the past and, I don't know, the current state, without trying to give too much away.
Question from Siggy. Does the team have any side projects? I assume not. And what are the team's thoughts on side gigs? I imagine post-launch some might want to cool off a bit lest they suffer burnout.
The burnout is a really good call out. This is kind of why we've mentioned a lot of the times on our updates in the past where we care about the team and our mental well-being and trying to have a healthy work-life balance and not pushing ourselves too hard. I think if we had kept working as hard as we were, to the point of, what is that word? Detrimental return, diminishing returns, we would have burnt out. We definitely felt feelings burnt out in the past, like a year ago, like when we first made the first announcement that like, hey, we're gonna like cool off a little bit. But I mean, we still all work incredibly hard and put in, double-digit hour days consistently, but try not to break that too often. In terms of side gigs, I don't think any of us have a side gig. This is like our full ass gig, man. This takes all of our time and effort, and there's really hardly anything else that could be, more interesting or more fun to work on, I think, for any of us than Citadel itself. I personally had like 2 other businesses that I've been in the process of transitioning out of and or shutting down the past 2 years. I kind of started that process when we started Citadel, because like I wanted to work on this. This was fun, and I was more passionate in having fun with this than anything I've done in the past. So I wouldn't really consider that a side gig because it was basically 2 other full-time jobs. They had been going for a while. They had their ups and downs, and I was in a good position to shut one down and transition out of the other, which is what I've been doing. It's basically been done for quite some time now. Post-launch, we have no plans to cool off.
Yeah, I think for all of us, this is what we want to be doing. This is, I mean, it's a job, but it's also extremely fulfilling.
Post-launch is just the beginning. Question from Lost. Will changing the player profiles on-chain affect the metadata? Will I be able to see detective Lost in the traits/metadata?
If we wanted to do that, we could. At the moment, we're not planning on it. We want player profiles to be an in-game thing and to strictly affect the in-game experience.
Question from 8Ball. Does the front end of the AI belt generator just show players where and when the belts are spawning?
The AI belt generator at the moment is an internal tool. We will publish the source for it, but the front end is basically to improve internal use.
Question from So Rude Mall Miner. The development of the game has gone crazy since I joined. More in-depth and detailed than anything I've experienced personally, and more than I've ever expected, to be honest. How do you intend to appeal to the wider market / normies?
We, I think, all agree that this is more in depth and detailed than any of us ever expected. To be honest, I'm not surprised knowing ourselves and our past projects and the lengths we like to go to do things, you know, to the degree and quality that we like. But in terms of our intent to appeal to the wider market and normies, I'm going to pass it on to Flam. I think Flam would have a good take on this. I'd be curious to hear his answer.
I think it kind of ties into what I was saying before. I mean, we look at ourselves as a game with NFTs, not an NFT project with a game. So part of the market includes the NFT market. That'll be an important thing to address, and I think there'll be plenty of interest there. Probably, you know, even from an NFT perspective, you know, the utility, as they say, is quite good, I think. But I think like I said before, our ambition has always been to be much broader than that in terms of appeal. So initially, lots of NFT people will probably be interested initially. People that are a lot more hardcore with crypto, that are into things like the idea of an on-chain game, will be, you know, an audience we're looking to court. And that audience tends to have a lot of very sophisticated people that includes developers who are also very interested in attracting early on, because we really want, you know, as many player creators onboarded into our community, into our DAO as we can out of the gate. That's more important to us than trying to go for mass adoption with a bunch of like more sort of layman or retail oriented type of players. So from there, you know, once we have a bunch of really great contributors to the project, building all kinds of cool things all at once, then all kinds of things are possible. And then in the background, one of our team focuses will be making the onboarding experience and the UX for an on-chain game as good as we can possibly be. I think that's one of the big battles to win, and I think we're probably doing one of the best jobs of that of any project that we know of at the moment.
I might just add, and this is probably a little out there. I do have a sort of theory about why people migrate to new ecosystems, and it's kind of tangible in real life. If you think about why people move to a new country, they're generally looking for a couple things. The biggest two, I would say, are stability and opportunity. And definitely there's going to be a lot of opportunity with the DAO to contribute. A lot of ways to become a bigger part of the ecosystem and the game. And as far as stability, I mean, that's what our whole economy is built around, is making these, you know, the economy as stable as possible, or stable over time. And so if this sort of theory holds true, then, you know, people will hopefully be drawn to the ecosystem because of those two things.
Question from Ian regarding when beta, timeline for beta. I guess to be brief, since we've already answered it, the answer was that we haven't released a timeline yet, but stay tuned to the announcements, the Twitter, etc. All of that stuff will be very big and clearly announced for everybody, so it definitely won't come as a surprise to anybody who's paying any sort of attention. Question from one. How did you all meet or put this team together?
Good question. The original core team, Red People, we've all known each other for like 10 years, 5 to 10 years, you know, overall. average. Myself, architect, have been business partners since 7th grade. We've had a lot of past ventures together, software, and successful business, which has been fun over the years. A lot of projects we've done. We got our start trading virtual, items and game and virtual economies and like things like TF2 and CS:GO and all that sort of stuff. That was really fun. That was like I guess our first business together. I remember architect writing me the formula to figure out how to split our TF2 trades when we pooled our assets together. Wasn't really complicated, but
Fleet commander ripping me off, selling me an unusual for way more than it was worth.
all right.
Remember that distinctly.
Look, in business, you got to be a cutthroat, and I was really teaching you a lesson. Anyways, Code Runner, architect and him have been very close and best friends for the past 5 years. I went to college together, and that's where I met Code Runner. Mining Officer and I met in EVE Online like 10 years ago as well. He's the one who taught me all about business because he's a bit older, not too much, but like he was older in the sense that when I met him, I was in high school and he was in college pursuing his bachelor's and then subsequently master's in business from the business school in Copenhagen. And so that's where I kind of turned my internet interests of trying to be entrepreneurial or make money into a business focus because of him. And so through there, we've always had this vision of Eve 2, making a type of Eve like game with that in-depth level player economy, with the blockchain underlying foundation as like a running joke for like the past 10 years. Now we're doing it, but for the rest of the team, who are now all equal co-founders with us, you got Mr. Purple and the Brig Chief and everything like that. Everyone on the team now, and the core team, has come from the community. They all started out here as members, like anyone here listening right now. And now they are up here with us because their contributions have been just completely invaluable and priceless. We couldn't do it without any of them. Flam, Heimdall, physics teacher, Jimmy, everyone, including patrollers. I mean, it's all been a full team effort, but most of the team now is comprised of people from the community rather than not, which I think is really cool. Kind of captures that decentralized, community building ethos from the very beginning.
Question from Maxi. Which game would you guys say are your main competitors in the market?
It's never good in business to say that you don't have competitors, but I think the answer is pretty accurate to say that we don't have competitors. And I don't mean that in the sense of no one is as good as us, or that there's just no one even close. That's definitely not the truth. There's a lot of fantastic teams out there building really exciting projects in the on-chain gaming space. And pushing the envelope further in a lot of new interesting directions that even we aren't looking in, which is great. But the way I view it is that the overall market, there's more than enough interest and need and demand for quality and good projects, and specifically actual games. I think a lot of people are very excited about the idea of an on-chain game rather than just a staking website, which is most on-chain games have been. But when it comes to competition, I view all the other teams really as just, we're all on the same side ultimately. I mean, we're elevating the space, we're elevating the technology, and we're pushing the adoption further than before. So I don't think we're really competing with anybody. If anything, the goal of Citadel, as we've stated from the beginning, is that it's going to be open source. Our resources, our work, everything we've done is meant to serve as a stepping stone and a template and an inspiration and a tool for others within and outside of the ecosystem to utilize to build their projects, be inspired, and maybe save 2 years in the process because we did some some stuff on our own, and that's where they can take it further. In the same way that we have used a lot of resources and technologies that other teams have put together to get where we are now. So there is obviously competition, but it's not, I think, traditional competition. It's more like in the same way that, well, I wouldn't say Blur and OpenSea aren't competitive. That's not a good analogy, but competition is good for the space. But I think in the on-chain gaming space specifically, there isn't really competition like that because there's so few teams doing it, where the ones that are, they're really all on the same side. In the future, maybe there'll be competition, but right now there's not.
Question from Taken Miners Lunch Money. What will incentives for content creation be like? More so I can get big brains to explain the API calls to me.
Flame, I don't know. Someone who has a focus on incentive for content creation.
Initially, there may not be anything really explicit, but we hope to create more and more incentives after launch as quickly as possible. I mean, the first incentive is a little bit more of a self-made incentive in that, you know, anyone can pitch anything to the DAO and potentially get funding. So your biggest incentive is just to come up with a really cool idea and make a compelling case for why you're the person to do it. Which I think could get us pretty far just with that. But beyond that, I think there's opportunities to create things like bounties, public bounties, things, you know, bite-sized tasks, a wide range of people could do to help out in a very concrete way with a known reward in advance. We have all kinds of interesting ideas to do with kind of things that might expand from what we're starting with the on-chain player profile thing. Right now, you know, there's going to be an ability to unlock special avatars and avatar backgrounds. That's just the beginning of all kinds of really cool ideas where you could have non-financial rewards as well as financial rewards across the spectrum of in-game achievements, governance achievements, community achievements. So I think there's a huge design space to experiment with as far as incentives go.
And I might just add to that so there are definitely, extrinsic rewards are possible in getting funding and all that stuff, but there's also a certain intrinsic reward in just creating something for a game that you love. And I'm not asking anybody to work for free, but I guess I just look back to ecosystems like the Warcraft 3 modding community. I was like a modder. I created like a zombie survival map, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of just people playing the game and, being good at it, and, just going to the lobby screen and seeing people making games and stuff like that. So I think there's a little bit of both in that, once the thing is launched and live and people are enjoying the ecosystem, that there will be a lot of intrinsic motivation to be known in the ecosystem and to be like, oh, I created that, and people love this thing that I created.
Question from Elliot. Sorry, I was reading the wrong question. Chat got bumped up with all these gifts. Question from Elliot. With the inclusion of being able to freely travel, is there plans that need this near release, or was it formed to future-proof for any later DAO contributions?
I would say neither, honestly. What happened was, as we were polishing the game, we were we were messing around, and we realized like it didn't really feel very natural that you couldn't travel anywhere on the map. It felt kind of restrictive. And so we just thought it'd be a nice addition to the game experience. I don't think it really would have been necessary for future proofing. And as far as I know, we don't have any plans at the moment that require it, but I could be wrong. But as I understand it, it's more of a nice to have.
Question from Rio. I think NFT gaming has the most sustainable future in Web3. Do you think that the Citadel will be capable of bringing in new people to NFTs and to NFT gaming?
Good question. I mean, it's in terms of capability, yeah, probably. I don't think it's really our focus to care or try to prioritize the bringing entirely new people to NFTs and NFT gaming. I think on-chain games as a whole have that capability and a very unique potential as they are kind of delivering a new slice and something fresh in terms of gaming and those an experience that hasn't really been able to have or held elsewhere. And by that extent, I think people will be very attracted to that. I mean, I know I myself, but not, a lot of popular game streamers and content creators and just I think people in general who play games are, I don't know, just a little bored. I mean, we have been playing a lot of the same games for a very long time now. It's great that the graphics are getting better, and there's and every now and then there's a fantastic indie game that comes out or amazing just new games. But in terms of like a whole new experience, like when we went from single player on your computer to multiplayer, or to LAN to multiplayer to like these MMOs, these whole new types of game experiences. I don't think that's really been had in a long time. But I think what on-chain gaming can serve to provide is, being able to really build a structure and platform around community and community ownership, and incentivizing people to contribute and build on top of, and alongside that, I mean, carry governance and all the unique aspects that come with that, the participation, the unlocking of, communities overall productive, I don't know, potential as a whole. Like, I think that is something that'll gain traction. But our focus is to capture the people that are here now and deliver a product that, for the ones who are listening, for the ones who are in the space. I mean, there's a lot of us, we all want Web3 gaming. We have nothing to play or no games to play though. So I think there's more than enough people right now to attract. But I don't know, Heimdall, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll just first of all, I agree with everything you just said, but I will say I feel like there's a lot of apathy over traditional gaming currently, just because I feel like big business has really gotten into it, and it's just been like copy paste, sequel this, sequel that. And if you Google, or if you go on YouTube and you just search like "why is gaming dying," you'll find like thousands of videos with hundreds of thousands of likes on people feeling the same way. This sort of general apathy over the lack of innovation in traditional gaming. And I was actually listening to something. It was a interview with one of the co-founders of Riot Games, and he was talking about it in the beginning, like all these VCs and all these publishers were turning them down because their game model hadn't been done before. This sort of free to play, microtransaction base, and it seemed ridiculous to these people who were making packaged goods, games that you had to pay $50 for to play, and they were shooting for like 20,000 active players, like that was the dream, So just think about that, and they have tens of millions of active, monthly active users now. So I'm not trying to compare us to that, but there's a lot more friction in getting into this sort of game. But I think that there's a certain thing that people don't know that they want until it's been made, and maybe this could be one of those things.
Question from Lost: how long have you all been creating this endgame vision / document?
I think Flam probably can answer this best, but I'll just give some words in terms of like endgame vision. I mean, internally we talk about grandiose visions and exploring like what could be, or things that we want to work on, and diving into like, if this then that, or if we have X, what is Y. And I think a lot of it is just kind of our focus with this endgame doc is capturing all that into a succinct, written version that can be communicated. But I don't know, Flam, if you have thoughts you want to throw in there as well about what you've been doing.
Yeah, I think it's probably been sort of the distillation of stuff that we've just said in chat, said to each other, things we believed, but they never really kind of took the time to actually write down and formalize um, and communicate publicly into like a formal document. You know, there's a lot of that in the white paper and the yellow paper too, but they're a little bit more focused on the here and now. What can we actually deliver on day one? Whereas, you know, there was all these other things that we had going on in our heads and that we were thinking about, and that I think we had sort of communicated in various ways, but particularly given that we're handing everything over, we're handing over the reins of ultimate control to the community and the DAO on day one. We just felt like before we did that, it was important that we shared what we had in mind at least. So there was some kind of North Star to rally around, even if that North Star stops being so much our North Star and our you know, the DAO alongside of us, we collectively co-create a new North Star. But we wanted something to aim for to be, in the beginning to make sure that there was enough focus to rally around.
Question from Ian. Where are funds for grants going to come from? For a 3,333 collection, it doesn't seem like there would be much left for grants if the team wanted a sustainable salary from mint funds.
I mean, the basics of how we've structured the project is that, you know, this flywheel approach where the DAO is accruing, you know, majority of royalties, majority of mint funds, and, you know, capturing or value and taxes and things like that, which would be the source of, I don't know, revenue, I guess, for the DAO, where you could, you know, deploy grants for people, other builders, and fund proposals that are made. Similar to Noun's DAO, except Noun's DAO's only source of income is through daily auctions. Citadel has a bunch and a lot of more flows built in because it can. I mean, that's not a bash on nouns. It's just that with a game and an ecosystem and, you know, a full in-game player economy, there's ways to tap in there for the DAO to capture, just like a real world economy does. In terms of sustainable salaries for the team, I think we'll be okay with our plans and how the launch is going to go. So I wouldn't really be concerned. I mean, we also have a percentage of royalties and things like that to help keep funding and going. With that in mind, I think we'll be fine, along with our own proposals and maybe grants that the DAO gives us for work that we want to do.
Question from Elliot. Is there plans to have some kind of physical merchandise store with the Citadel, like spend or ETH, etc., and get a coffee flask or something? Money to the devs or the DAO could be cool. Though I have no idea what overhead would be like.
There's no like plans for that. I mean, I don't think merch has ever been really one of our priorities. I mean, we kind of bash merch as like a joke because, you know, a lot of merch for projects is one, insanely overpriced, two, insanely just bad and low quality, and three, just incredibly slow production, shipping, a whole mess. I mean, it's just a clusterfuck, and it's embarrassing. And really, just if anything, it's more of a fucking vampiric suck from the community than really an exciting thing to, you know, get excited about. But when it comes to like Citadel, I think there's a lot of cool, you know, opportunities for people to propose merch ideas of things that they can do or have connections to make. I know I've seen a lot of people talk about posters, you know, kind of like glorified game posters like you have for normal game projects and having that be bought with or other stuff. So I think like good quality, cool merch, you know, that isn't just some stupid t-shirt with the logo on it. That's something that could happen. I know it's not something that we're working on. In terms of a physical store, like within the map, that's actually pretty fun to think about. Like, you know, I guess it could be at the Citadel itself. If you're there, you can spend your ore on some merch. But yeah, I mean, just basically food for thought. Always, you know, anyone can build it.
I think that's kind of a cool idea. That's how I'd like to see it go down if we were going to go that route. That there is an in-game store for real life merch.
Yeah, it does sound cool.
Yeah.
All right, delay the project.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot that could be explored there. Just one last reminder for anybody, if you have any last minute questions, you are able to jump into the VC. If you want to raise your hand, we can bring you up on stage. Otherwise, anybody else have any last minute questions, get those typed up, because I think we're pushing up on about that 1 hour mark, so we'll probably cut out of here shortly.
Yeah, we'll take like a few more questions if there are any.
Yeah. When DAO funded Citadel cookies.
Ooh, I like that.
Also, if anybody wants to come up on stage and ask a question, feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think Coin Counter has his hand raised.
Got it. On it.
He does.
Yep. He's been invited.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. It's a pretty simple one. Has the Citadel considered bringing in any like outside liquidity into the game ecosystem? I'm not talking about like VC funding or anything like that, but something like in terms of like having advertisements or sponsorships for ways to be able to have the ecosystem to have just additional liquidity coming in that way.
That's all you, Heimdall.
I'm not sure. Could you rephrase it a little bit?
Yeah. So in terms of the gaming ecosystem as a whole, one of the things that I could see being valuable is user bases, and one of the ways that monetization has occurred in the past in many other ecosystems, such as like YouTube and just Google search and things like that, is that you have advertisements that you show the users, and that is a way to be able to bring funds into an ecosystem. And so I guess the question is has there ever been a thought of having like sponsorships or anything like that for the ecosystem that could be very carefully vetted by the team that would have similar mindsets, or maybe it's sponsorships from other games or something like that, to be able to have that advertising revenue be a part of the liquidity that's coming in through the systems? Because as we all know, one of the big problems with most loops is that once the money runs out, that something breaks, type of a thing.
Yeah, so I guess what you're asking is like, are we going to be doing any like sort of paid marketing? Is that what you're asking?
So
Yeah,
I think we're talking about
that's
like
one example.
in-game, like would an example be like showing in-game advertisements to people
Ace
that play the game?
billboards. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be an example. Or maybe there's a new game that's came out that are coming out that's like parallel or something like that, or that is they're doing a launch, or they're doing some type of a thing where they're trying to advertise for it. There's not a whole lot of mediums for that right now, other than like just Discords and Twitter. And so if that was obviously something that it was something that had aligned values with what you guys want to bring to the game, would that be something that would be a concept that would be available?
I think it's a really slippery slope for a project like us. I think I could imagine very specific cases with really great partners where we could come up with a really wholesome idea that made sense within the context of the world and within the context of our community. But I think at least my personal disposition would be to be very wary of going down that road and opening that door. I think we need to be very careful about how we go about monetization, particularly when it involves things like advertising. I think it would be very easy in the next, few years as we start creating more and more immersive and sort of serious virtual environments to increasingly invoke dystopia by accident. So, when I think of a world populated by like a bunch of billboards, like many other virtual worlds have become in Web3, I get pretty turned off and pretty freaked out and pretty grossed out. So I think there's maybe limited possibilities there, but I think I think we'd be pretty cautious about how we would go about that.
I will say, I think, Fleet, you showed me like Eve's version of that within the space stations, and I think the way that they do it is pretty cool. And I'm not sure if the in-game corporations, are those the ones
Yes.
they're able to do that? Yeah. So
Players make like themed in-game ads for their own corporations and alliances, or in-game companies. Like a manufacturing corporation will try to like put up an ad, and it's mostly for fun. I don't think anyone's really paying attention to the ads, but they are there. I mean, there's fucking floating billboards in Eve. They have player ads on them. They have ads from CCP that are like lore, like themed, funny news events going on, like stuff like that. I think that's like particularly fitting because it's like player generated and it's oriented around the game world itself, and that's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, just other things, just in terms of just ideas, is you could also have like game passes or common things to have in terms of paid versus free to play ways of playing things. And so you could have a world where some of the ads are there and a world where some of the ads aren't there. But anyway, just trying to think of ways to bring liquidity to different systems, and I just was curious if the Citadel has ever thought of that. So
no, yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I guess, yeah, it would be up to the DAO, like whether we had something like that. I guess I could imagine objects on the map that are just kind of floating around, just like a billboard in Eve, and you click on it and some ad for some in-game corp would pop up, or say, as you said, something that's value aligned with us that the DAO approves of. Definitely could be something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, like with the advertising space, advertising is really, really valuable. And so I would think that having an active player base in this ecosystem, like I said, there's just not very many big player bases in Web3. It's just, and so if you can create one that has a good user base, which I'm very confident that you guys can do, there's a lot of value just inherently inside of that system. And the hope, I guess, just an avenue for being able to raise money into the treasury could be something like that, in terms of just taking that outside funding in some way. And I've just never seen anybody. I've never seen a P2E or a online or Web3 game or whatever it is utilize that system. And I've always just been curious to what it would look like if somebody could do that. So
time will tell.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something that I think that's kind of the exciting part of this idea of a fully decentralized community-owned game, is even if it's not us, anybody else who wants to, and if the DAO can get behind it and there's a good plan and enough people interested, like they have the full agency and autonomous nature of the DAO to support them on seeking out kind of shit like that. So that's something that's definitely a possibility to explore.
thanks.
Time will tell. Great question. Thanks for coming up and asking. Any other questions, or did that wrap that up?
Yeah, I think that wrapped it up for him.
All right. Fingers, along with the store, do you think there will be any possibility of an in-game casino, or is that a legal nightmare?
Oh yes, case bets, right?
Probably something not for us to answer. I think, yeah, like Flam said, case bets, some community created stuff of that nature is, power to them. It's not something we can really control. It's not in our, we don't have anything, we don't have any plans ourselves to build stuff like that, but if someone else wants to, power to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool idea. But yeah, definitely hairy legally. There was some somebody posted an article of like some sort of legal precedent for that sort of thing within a game, and that they won a court case with it. But yeah, I think definitely a difficult thing to do, especially with how fungible money is within this ecosystem. So
Do this last question from
Styles.
Pias Dun or Saul Rude, since he's typing, and he probably has another good question.
It will take Styles' question. I remember if you talked about this, can you touch on spaceship skins and if there will be a showroom to display your ships in game? Also, changing the skins on a ship, would that change the metadata and add properties, or is it just an in-game feature?
Yeah, in terms of like the spaceship skins and cosmetics, like that's something that we want to build like post-launch. So I can't say there's like any definitive system planning done yet of like how that'll look. We have a lot of ideas. I think a lot of, when it comes to like what we want to do, our focus is more on building a scalable system for ship cosmetics with the community, rather than just like adding them in. I mean, it'd take like minutes to add in the functionality for you to change skins. The thing we want to build is like a system that makes it easy for the community to submit skins, that kind of review process, the voting. I mean, I don't know, basically kind of like a mini proposal system, but for cosmetics. I'm not going to say that's exactly what we're going to do, but like we're more interested in building out the underlying systems to support cosmetics on a good scale, rather than just being like you can swap to them. That's not really, that doesn't go far. In terms of like a showroom, and I think it was update like 16 or 17. I just posted a picture. We did kind of like share some snippets of kind of like ship hangers and things that we were like working on as like just concepts and experimenting with ideas. That seems like a really cool thing. I like the idea of that kind of shared co-inhabited virtual space. I know the rest of the team does as well, where you can see your ships there, and maybe not only yours, but other players in your corporation, people you just want to look at this collection in general. I think that'd be fun. So it's definitely something like we want to build. It's obviously not really a priority for launch, so we're not going to scope creep there. But yeah, I mean, it'll be a thing at some point for sure, because it makes sense and it's rad, and we like to build rad things that make sense. In terms of changing the skins on the ship, like, yeah, it'd probably be metadata change. In terms of properties, like changing the stats, no, it'd just be cosmetics, if I understood that correctly. But yeah, the ship skins would be on chain.
Beautiful. And on that note, I think we wrap things up there. As always, these Q&As always just get me more excited and more hyped up, and then I have a million questions, and it gets me looking forward to so much. I'd like to thank everybody in the community for showing up, and for any newcomers, welcome. For those of you who may have strolled in late, just a little reminder, we do have these AMAs posted on YouTube, so you can tune into the prior ones. And as well, this one will also be posted up. And thank you very much for the team for coming in here and answering all of those questions, and for all the hard work. As always, I guess we'll let everybody get some rest, which most likely looks like more work. But yeah, thank you, everybody. And that'll be it for today's AMA number 18, and looking forward to number 19.
See you guys next month, or April 15th.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in.
See you guys.
Yeah, thanks everyone.